Good morning. It's Wednesday, May 2nd. May 2nd. And you're here with Java with Jerry, and we're glad you came and joined us. Every Wednesday, 10 o'clock, we're here. If you haven't signed up already, you need to go do that at orangeslice.com. That's where you can find all the previous videos and catch up with stuff. Or if you want to listen to this as a podcast while you're walking the dog or working out in the gym or pulling weeds in the backyard, whatever it is you do, you can plug in and listen to the audio file at Podbean, and you can sign up for that at orangeslice.com too. So that's where to go find all of it. So what's happening today? We'll do some commentary on the local news as always. Our feature at the end of the show is for you boomers. How to speak millennial. We have another opportunity for you to learn how to talk to the 20-somethings in your life. And our guest today, which is the main part of the show that you absolutely love, is Glenn Roquemore, Dr. Glenn Roquemore, who is president of Irvine Valley College. I call him the Doc of Rocks, and I'll explain to you why I call him that when we get started. So a big show, and we're glad you're here to do it. And by the way, if you have commentary, make sure you send it in, because our production staff, Julie and Erica, will get back to you, or they'll get me to get back to you. So let me see where we are. I think I've told you all of this. Let's do the news first so we can have some time with Glenn, because of course I overwrote, as I always do. I have more stuff to talk to him about than we'll possibly squeeze in our time together. All right, national news. I picked some of these stories because Glenn is coming, and you guys will understand after you meet him. NASA is about to launch the InSight lander and headed to Mars again. It's going to be on the back of a rocket coming out of Vandenberg Air Force Base this time. And it's happening on Cinco de Mayo. So we're going to go launch something on Cinco de Mayo. And I say attempt to go to Mars because in the dozens and dozens of attempts that we've done since the 1960s, only about 40% of the time are we successful at this. I don't know why it's so hard, but apparently there's something going on with the atmosphere in Mars and their weather extremes, and it's not so easy to land there. But they're going to go up and try to land the InSight lander, and it's going to be doing stuff that Glenn would love. It's going to look at sort of the hardscape of Mars and try to figure out what's going on in its formations, and look at things like Mars quakes, like our earthquakes. They have Mars quakes. So we'll have Glenn explain all that to us, because he's got a PhD in this stuff. Anyway, they're going to launch it on Cinco de Mayo. If you're up anytime between 4 and 6 a.m. on Cinco de Mayo, you can probably catch what it looks like. Look up into the sky and you'll see what's coming out of Vandenberg. And then it's Cinco de Mayo, so you're up early in the morning. You can go have huevos rancheros and start your celebration. I don't know. And then we're going to launch again to Mars in 2020. And that's going to have biological studies, and so that's out of Mr. Roquemore's expertise, and so I won't ask him about that. All right, state news. That's the national story. Here's state news. Apparently, the Supreme Court in California has made a critical ruling on the gig economy. Don't know what the gig economy is? Ask a millennial. Anyway, people who are involved in outside gigs are always being treated in the past as independent contractors, right? Well, the Supreme Court says, not so fast, cowboy. It isn't so much the old independent contractor rule that applies anymore, which had like 10 little features you would go and look at to figure out if somebody was an independent contractor, largely built around their independence, right? Not anymore. Now, according to the Supreme Court, if what the person is doing is the mainstay of what your business is, then they may not be an independent contractor, they may be an employer. So all you people out there doing Uber and Lyft, you may all of a sudden be employees and not independent contractors if what you do, driving, is in the mainstay of what the company, Uber, Lyft, does. So let's face it, innovation and government regulations don't always go well together. Government loves to regulate, tax, and kill, and apparently now they're going to change the gig economy. So go look into that story. Kind of interesting. We'll be following that some more, I'm sure. All right, local news. So local Orange County leaders and their supporters want to have are you ready for this? Orange County Housing Authority. That's right, you heard me right. Another level of government, and I did really say in the OC. Really, I mean, I know we have a serious housing problem. I get it. We do have housing shortage in California, but Orange County leaders, you're going to go to our dysfunctional legislature and ask them to run a bill for you so that you can have a housing authority, another level of government. That's how we're going to solve the problem. Really? Why don't we just hand it over to like the DMV or the VA or maybe the State Superintendent of Education? If you want something screwed up, hand it to a government agency that already exists. They're pros at that. You want a train wreck? They can do it. Honestly, I don't know why you're doing that. Please, local leaders, go do something productive. Go fishing or something. Quit messing with housing. Leave it to the marketplace. All right, sports story, and then we're going to wrap the news. It's May. The best part of that means we're only 4 months, maybe a little less than 4 months away from preseason football. We got that going for us. All right, that's it. That's the Java news. Let me bring in my guest. Glenn, I'm going to have you come join me on set. Dr. Glenn Roquemore. While you get settled, I will tell everybody about you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. I see that you got the memo. Wear checks, okay? We didn't plan this. It just turned out that way. Great minds think alike. I want to have a great mind like the doc here. All right, let me tell you a little bit about him. I told you that he is the president of the Irvine Valley College, and I can't really tell you all the things he's done except that he's a big leader in the South Orange County Community College District, which we will talk a little bit about. And he serves on a bunch of different committees. It's important for you to know sort of where he's been in his career. He was a geological sciences professor, obviously, and then he was head of the School of Physical Sciences and Technology. He was the chair there, became the Dean of Advanced Technology, had a bunch of other assignments, and then was elevated to president of the community college, and it's an innovative one. So we'll talk a little bit about IVC and how it's different. He also serves on the AACC, which is the American Academy, I guess, of Community Colleges. I think Commission on Workforce Development, which is a passion of Glenn's, and you'll hear a lot about that. The Association of California Community Colleges, the Community College League of California, and a number of others. He also serves on the Orange County Business Council's Board of Directors. For the U.S. Army's on the Community Advisory Board. The Western Association of Schools and Colleges, of course, tabbed him, and so he's busy in a lot of things. His education is, he's got a PhD, I wasn't kidding, in geology and geophysics. That's why I call him the Doc of Rocks. That, and his last name is Roquemore. He got that from the University of Nevada. Also has a master's and a BA in geology. Of course, can't get enough degrees from Cal State University in Fresno. And he's got a certificate from the Institute of Educational Management at Harvard. So, well educated. He's instrumental in developing and implementing pathways initiatives, and we're going to talk a lot about that because Glenn's big on pathways. I learned a lot about that from knowing him over the years, and has utilized IVC's community college conduit to transfer students and help them achieve. And we'll talk about his early college pathway and ATEP, if I can squeeze it into the 100 questions I have for you. Thank you for coming on board. I'm never going to get through all this stuff, Doctor, I want you to know. So let's start big.
That's right.
Start with sort of an overview for those that don't know it about the South Orange County Community College District, and tell us about the district.
Well, I sure will. So the South Orange County Community College District is one of 72 districts in California. And in fact, California has the largest educational system in the country, serving more students than anybody else. Wow. The districts can have different number of colleges within them. Some of our districts have only one. Take the Los Angeles district, they have 9. And so in our case, we have 2. We have Irvine Valley College and we have Saddleback College here. The community colleges are designed to be all different. And the reason is, that's where community comes from, is that we're intended to serve our demographic for which we're located. And so Saddleback has nursing, we don't. Saddleback has football, we don't. We tend to be more on the high-tech side of things. We also have the highest transfer rate to 4-year institutions in the entire state of California. So living in the shadow of UC Irvine, that's part of the reason for that, is we've adopted that transfer mentality. So
let's talk a little bit about what makes IVC really different. Let's talk about the fact that you are so techie and wired, and is that because of that you're called the lasers? I don't know. Where did the mascot name come from?
Well, that's all true. And where it comes from is that we are one of the youngest community colleges out of all of them. There are a couple of other much younger ones, but 1985, I mean, compared to those that are running about 100,
relatively
like Fullerton and Fresno. So for that reason, we grew up in a time when technology was emerging. And so we didn't have the auto technologies. We had robotic manufacturing. We had laser electro-optics and that kind of thing. So, and it also caused us to have that influence from UCI that really applied a much higher level of academic overprint for us.
So let's talk a little bit about how you've taken that sort of to the next step, because you're doing something really unique in my hometown that no other community college district has ever done. It's called the Advanced Technology Education Park, and nobody should know that better than the Dean of Advanced Technology before you were president of the college. So Talk a little bit about ATEP, as we call it, and what it does, and about its public-private partnership, too, because it's really exciting. First, what it teaches, and then we can get to the other stuff.
Yeah, that's important. So ATEP is our opportunity, even though it's shared by Saddleback as well. But in our case, it is our opportunity to, where we have our high-level transfer curriculum that makes out most of our campus. In this case, ATEP gives us the opportunity to build a workforce campus.
Yeah.
And so many of your folks may know that it's projected that by 2020, we're going to be lacking about 1.6 million workers to take 21st century jobs in California.
Whoa. In California alone, we're going to be short 1.6?
That's what's projected, the best that I recall in my reading. And so we have to get busy, and we have to be able to have a new model that can help develop this trained technical workforce to take these jobs.
That's an astonishing number, Glenn, especially in a place where we're so jobs rich, right? I mean, we have a lot of jobs in Orange County. We're housing poor and jobs rich, but here we're going to be short in California 1.6 million, and in the kind of technologies that really is the emerging economy, that's a frightening number.
Well, and on top of that, most of our businesses tell us that when they hire, their new employees are only 70% ready to do the work that they're hired for.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of skill building that has to take place. And that's really the model that we have for ATEP.
And really one of the strengths, I think, of the community colleges, that unlike the four-year schools, they're a great entry point for somebody who's retooling their life, right? You got laid off from an old industry, you're now in 21st century technology world, and you really have to step it up. Where do you go to pick up those skills and get back into the workforce? And that's sort of what the community colleges have been designed for. And in the high-tech area, that's really IVC, right?
Well, it is. And we like to say that in the community college, we serve the top 100. So you take anyone that can benefit from higher education, retooling, lifelong learning, all of those different situations, and that's what we offer. That's our niche in education. So
beyond ATEP being a highly technical entry point for workforce, it is also a public-private partnership. It's got probably the most unique model of a community college I've ever seen built, and I was proud that you picked Tustin to go locate it. But tell us what you are doing there and how this public-private partnership works.
That's frankly at the heart of the vision for ATEP, and that is that currently within our workforce development courses, we meet with business once a year, and we're required by the state to do that. Well, the issue there is you might have a great couple-hour meeting, but then you don't meet for another year. And so infusing what businesses are doing, what the new technologies are, what are those skills gaps that I just talked about that we can help cure, really are not effective. It doesn't get transferred well. So the idea here is to actually move in with business. And so have our businesses and industry play a role in the development of curriculum with us. Have them so close to us that faculty can articulate back and forth on a daily basis.
Wow.
They can learn when that software goes to the next version. They can bring that back to the classroom immediately so it can be effective for that future employee.
So you're taking what's theoretical in a classroom or developed by, no offense, an egghead PhD who sits there and says, this is what I think theoretically ought to work, and you're bringing it to somebody who actually makes widgets, and then you two are talking and he's saying, this is what's gone wrong with this, Doc. I need you to tinker with this function.
Yes, and so literally what the community colleges across the nation are evolving to, while not changing the modality of serving the transfer curriculum, that's going to remain there and solid. But there is this need to begin to build the workforce, and it's an experiential learning process. This is where you go in, you will work with a robot, you will program that robot, and then go back and you'll learn really the basics behind it. And so that's what we think is going to close that skills gap. And the other thing we'd like to say is it gives the business the opportunity to grow their own employee.
Right.
Because there will be cohorts. The students can take a look at that business or industry and they can say, is this for me? We have a lot of students that get into areas that it's really not, and they opt out. And then the business can look back and they can say, what is your work ethic? Does that fit for us?
Yeah.
And follow them through their 2 years of education, and then when they hire, they know that they've got someone on the job that's 100% ready.
It's really like an internship on steroids, because you're standing there next to an engineer who may hire you someday, learning how to operate in the real world in which he works. And so your education is practical from the moment you enter the classroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about pathways, though, because not everybody is going to go in and learn how to prototype a robotic, effort. So they're not going to be building the next machine and widget of the world, but they want to go on and they want to go to nursing, or they want to go into the social sciences, or they want to go into the biological sciences and the like. You're really big on pathways. Let's talk about how the conduit of the community college can really be a pathway to an educational success story.
Well, you're right. Pathways for both career pathways and what we're calling guided pathways, I'll talk about in a moment, has become critically important. And my soapbox is that over time, we have...
I've heard from the soapbox.
We've had a lot of trouble with, in fact, the community colleges have this big bureaucracy, and they're working on trying to make sure that the units that students take actually go with them to their four-year institutions.
Yeah.
It's called articulation. Now, the problem is, particularly in the state of California, a particular course that might be Algebra 1 can be different on a different community college campus, and it can be very different at UCI or Cal State Fullerton, in which case we have counselors that are working hard trying to make sure that our Algebra 1 can actually go to Fullerton if the student wants to go there. So this articulation problem creates a roadblock.
Yeah.
And so the community college is set up to be a 60-unit two-year program. The national average is actually 85 units in 5 years.
Wow.
So what happens to those students that languish, that can't afford, they have families, they can't afford to sit in the community college for that long? They opt out.
Right.
So here comes Pathways then. So what we're working on is we're working on a set curriculum that comes from the high schools, goes to the community college, and then finally to their transfer institution in a manner that they know exactly what that pathway looks like. They know how long it will take them. And if they want to experiment, then we're transparent about that. We say, you jump off the pathway, that's fine, enrich yourself, but no, here are the impacts when you do that, and you can make that decision.
So students as early as high school can actually look down the field and say, this is where I want to get, and this is the path to get there.
You can actually see your end point.
Yeah, that's great.
And you know the path to get there. That doesn't exist today so much.
So you teased us about another pathway. Talk about it, because I know that you're very engaged.
In which pathway?
In the enriched pathway you talked about?
Oh, the guided pathway.
The guided pathway.
All
yeah.
right. So Irvine Valley College was selected out of 30 colleges nationally to participate in a Gates Foundation project called Guided Pathways. And what this is intended to do, and I talked about transparency. Again, much of what I just talked about, it narrows gets us back to those 60 units, gets the four-year schools down to the 120 that they should have, and in fact they're about 158. So we're not the only ones.
Everybody's
got that problem. And then what we do is we have above that what's called meta majors, and I think the best example of that is STEM. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics creates a whole suite of job possibilities. Then out of that, the curriculum that you take for those 2 years will be applicable to all of those. And then above that, you have what careers are available to you, so you can see that in a transparent way. Then the next step is, what would you expect to be paid? Now, the beauty there is that not all pathways that interest our students may not necessarily have a living wage on the other end. And so here, it could be a passion, but at least it's transparent that you know when you get into that, you might have to have a second job in order to live in Orange County if that's where you want to be.
Or if you're a lifelong learner and you're at the end of a career and you're about to retire, you can look at it and transparently figure out, this is how I'm going to stay mentally active and enrich my life in my senior years, because I've picked it, and I'm not looking to get to the end where I'm going to be making $150K. I'm looking to have an opportunity to learn something new that I've always had a passion for.
That's all available as well.
Yeah, it really is interesting that the community colleges have sort of become the utility player in baseball, right? They not only are there for the matriculating student who says, I want to eventually get to a four-year university. I may even want to go to graduate school, but I got to save my resources because it's expensive to get degrees these days, especially if you want to get as many degrees as Dr. Roquemore. So I got to make sure I've got enough money to get through all that. I'm going to start out at the community college because it's really an affordable deal, right?
It is, absolutely.
And it's also there for the person who, as we said, got laid off from a dying industry and wants to retool for the 21st century, and also for the person who just wants to be a lifelong learner, the senior that wants to go back and hang around with young people and stay fresh and vibrant.
Yeah. Let me tell you about, if we have time, two of our pathways.
Oh, we'll make time.
Okay. We have one called Gap 4+1. And it's
sounds like a football play now.
It's with Cal State Fullerton, and it's a guaranteed admissions program.
Oh, that's by the Gap. Okay.
In accounting.
Oh.
And so coming out of high school, again, you have that prescribed curriculum that will take you from the high school through our community college, and with a guaranteed admittance into the accounting program at Cal State Fullerton, at which point then you're guaranteed another 2 years for your bachelor's. You finish that and you're automatically admitted into the graduate program.
Wow.
And so all of this is mapped out. All of the curriculum is written by faculty from Cal State Fullerton and Irvine Valley College, and is a guaranteed pathway. Our biggest one right now that I'm most excited about is with UCI Irvine Engineering. And so I was approached by Dean Washington of the Mechanical and Aeronautical Engineering there, and he said, Glenn, I have about 600 applicants here that are qualified to be in my program, and I can't take them. Can we try to come up with a program? And I said, absolutely. So once again, the faculty from both campuses got together and wrote a 2-year pre-engineering program.
Wow.
And those students that can't make it in, they're qualified, but they're not being admitted, will be given a letter from me and from Dean Washington that will say, you have an opportunity. This is not required, but you have the opportunity, if you wish, go to Irvine Valley College for 2 years. We're going to take you back as a junior.
Wow.
If you follow that curriculum. And so talk about our ATEP site, our new idea building.
Which you just cut a ribbon on. Talk about that.
We just cut a ribbon on. So that's integrated design, engineering, and automation building. And our school, the academic programs are that as well, is going to grow quite large as a result of this. The dean feels that it will get to about 1,400 students by the time we're finished.
Wow. And so what you're doing is really giving them the first 2 years of their engineering education at an affordable rate, and then they automatically transfer to UCI.
You pick that up right away. $46 per unit.
How much?
$46. It's the
that's
least
deal.
expensive in the nation.
Wow.
Yes.
And of course, you know, STEM jobs now are where the future is. So if you've got an engineering student, adults, go sign them up with Dr. Roquemore, because you're going to get a quality education from a good school, and at the other end of it, you get a UCI sheepskin. That's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is good.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about this collaboration. You hear a lot of moaning, and I moan a lot about the quality of education, particularly because everybody's talking about core education and what it means to have Common Core and the like.
Sure.
But you've done a lot of cooperative work, Glenn, at all levels of education. I know that for many years, the community colleges were like the stepchild of funding when it came to the state of California. UC's always got a lot of money for their research, campuses and for their medical programs and the like. The Cal States got their fair share, and then at sort of the tail end, whatever was left on the table went to the community colleges. Mm-hmm. But now you're working collaboratively with those other levels of education, and you're putting programs together that really are intelligently planned for the student, who's really the product. Tell me, though, from your vantage point, because you've been at it for a while, what's education missing? What's wrong with what we're doing in California? What could we fine-tune and make it better? Because you've got sort of the inside look at this. And I think it's important for people who are policy geeks to watch this show to know what an educator thinks of what we're doing.
Well, I think there's a number of things, and certainly my opinion could be critiqued by some.
It will be critiqued by the time the show is over.
But it's one that I mentioned, is that the barriers that we put in front of students are just immense.
But you're knocking them down. So how do we get those barriers out of the way in the first place?
Okay, so one of the things that we're working on is called the ADT. It's a transfer degree, so an associate's transfer degree. This is something that is adopted by the Cal States. And so it is a form of a pathway. It says if you take these ADT courses, then you're going to get around that articulation problem. We will accept all of those. Well, nice idea. Is it working 100%? The answer is no. And the reason is that each Cal State is different, and each program within each Cal State is different. And so the ADT, while it was a baby step in the right direction towards solving that barrier, has a long way to go.
Yeah.
And only now the UCs are looking at perhaps adopting that, but that will still be about 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. The other thing that we do here in California is we have a statewide application software. And so if you want to apply at Irvine Valley College, you go online just like any other resident in California, you go into the same software. Well, I tell you that one of the institutes that we attended on being part of the 30 College looking at guided pathways, one of the first exercises that we did, and I had trustees, I had faculty, I had administrators at my table. And so we tried to apply. And each and every person around the table said, we're dropping out. So why?
These are college professors and administrators.
Yeah, why do we want to do that to students?
Yeah.
Why not just, since we do serve the top 100,
Yeah.
and anybody that can benefit from an education can come to Irvine Valley College, why not have a button? You push and you're in.
Yeah.
And then you go through the registration process.
Well, you're always at the cutting edge, Glenn. I'm glad. And Julie just showed me that we've already run out of time. So I'm glad you came. We'll have you back again because I want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing in education. It's innovative, and you're talking to all the other people at the other levels and making sure they innovate too. So it's a good thing. Tell our viewers, though, and those who are listening, if you want to get more information about IVC or ATEP or some of the innovative stuff you're doing, and certainly about these pathways to a future of success, where should they go? What website?
We have a very robust website. It'll have ATEP on it. It'll have everything you've talked about. It's
Great.
simply ivc.edu, irvinevalleycollege.edu.
Please go there, check out what's going on. If you get a chance to go see ATEP in Tustin, one of the finest cities in Orange County, please go do that. Go visit the main campus in Irvine. Glenn's got really fabulous programs. And really, parents, if you're a parent of a child who's interested in any kind of STEM education and you really want to go to a state-of-the-art technological school, the IBC lasers are the place to go. Thanks for coming, my friend.
Jerry, thank you. Always a pleasure.
We're going to have you stick around because I'm going to do a little feature, then we're going to do a wrap, and we'll send you on your way to go educate. So today's feature is, I know you guys love this one, How to Speak Millennial. That's right. This is the opportunity for you boomers to learn how to speak to the millennials in your life. We give you a little lesson in a particular phrase or word, and then how you use it in real life, and you add it to your lexicon, and you're already beginning to use them because I hear from some of you. So what is the word of the day? It's actually a phrase. Spill the tea. All right, what does that mean? Well, the tea is when you have, some little tidbit of gossip, some little enticing thing that you know that no one else does. And so here's how it works. When you have a juicy bit of gossip, the phrase that you'll use is spill the tea, and it might be a conversation like, here's the quote I'm going to use. Girl, did you hear that Renee is having another baby and that the baby daddy is a guy that's been cheating on her? And then her friend would say, oh my God, spill the tea. And so she will explain what the gossip is. So there you go, spill the tea. That's how you use it. And it came actually from a meme I heard, like, that's none of my business. So you'll learn about that when you learn about spilling the tea, and that's the word of the day. Don't forget that we're still looking for you to send in our dumb criminal stories, because we do that as a feature. So if you have dumb criminal stories, send them in. You can compete and win your very own Java with Jerry mug. You, Glenn, get to take that mug with you. That's your parting gift.
Thank you.
We want to thank again our guest, Dr. Glenn Roquemore, president of IBC, for coming. I want you to take that back to the campus and make everybody jealous.
I will do that, sir.
And we'll have you back again. Next week's guest will be Mayor Don Wagner, who actually began his political career serving on the South Orange County Community College District Board, and then went on to be an assemblyman and now the mayor of Irvine, one of Orange County's largest cities. And we'll have Don in to talk about all the innovative stuff that's going on in the city and about sort of serving at different levels of government and the interesting places that he's been in his career. And so that'll be a great show. You don't want to miss it. Don't forget to go to orangeslice.com and sign up. In the meantime, we will see you next week for the intervening week. Have a good one. Make sure you make good decisions, and we'll see you next Wednesday on Java with Jerry.